right, good evening, friends, and welcome to the Dreary Midnight Podcast. My name is Lisa, my pronouns are she, they.
My name is Celeste, my pronouns are she, her.
And today we are doing some old-timey spooky stories.
Ooh.
Let's get into it. Intro music.
Intro music. You should replace the intro music with old, like
Clementine agrees with you, apparently. Yeah.
Sorry if you hear barking. It's spring, so we have the windows blinds up, and people are walking dogs. And Clementine,
how dare the other dogs exist in the neighborhood?
Having dogs exist. Yeah, exactly. She's the only dog that's allowed to exist.
And she's coming over to make her opinions known. All right. What's your thoughts, Clem? She's just staring at me.
She's wagging her tail real hard.
All right. If you want scritches, we can't do scritches. Okay, I guess I'm doing scritches right now.
Don't let her peer pressure you. She gets enough scritches in this house.
But, girl.
See, it's because you gave in. Now she's going to expect scritches all the time.
Anyway, I can do this with one hand, right? Yeah, of course. This is an audio medium, but she just jumped up onto my chair. Anyway, today we're doing some old-timey spooky stories. What do I mean by that? So I got on a tangent looking for something entirely different, and I didn't want to move.
Yeah, this was not the original podcast.
This was not the original topic at all.
I'm sure you will do the original topic.
I will. But when you get a reader's card at the Library of Congress, sometimes you want to actually read some of the old-timey newspapers. Yeah, and so we're going to do some spooky stories that were published in some old-timey newspapers.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So Monday, August 19th, 1839, from D.C.
Ooh.
And so this is under the home intelligence column, because apparently that's a thing. This is called The Haunted Church. A ghost laid without the help of a parson. For several months past, a story was circulated in the streets contiguous to and among the people living opposite a certain church, which is not more than a mile from the old theater in this city, that about, quote, the witching hour of midnight, unquote, a number of invisible spirits haunted the church and held a kind of ambulatory conclave in the body of the building, where, although no ghostly visitors had actually been seen by any of the terrified believers in this story, lights, whether blue, true, or new lights, does not appear, had been noticed by a number of credible witnesses, both male and female, but especially the latter, at all hours of the night, and more particularly at midnight, flitting around the church, sometimes appearing in the pews, sometimes in the aisles of the church, moving about in every direction, sometimes blazing out in awful splendor, at other times glimmering like a small taper and casting a lurid light in the corners of the church, or suddenly vanishing in the cross aisle fronting the pulpit. Such was the story, and such was the general belief of the neighborhood. None dared to disbelieve the statements of so many respectable witnesses, and, although some few doubted that the lights appeared in the church through any supernatural agency, the belief was almost universal in the neighborhood that the church was haunted. Gentlemen of intelligence and nerve, whose professional vocations seemed to bid defiance to the ghosts and ghost stories, influenced by the fears of their female servants and the female portion of their households, almost irresistibly yielded to the general belief and gave evidence of their credulity by such inquiries as, I wonder if any person is interred in that church, and I think there are a few graves in the yard close by the pulpit, are there not? And etc. On a certain night, not more than 2 or 3 weeks ago, a gentleman residing very near this suspected haunt of ghostly visitants was informed that the awful lights had been seen that very night by not only the ladies and female servants of his family, but by a gentleman then lodging in the house. The ladies and servants had not retired, and seemed unwilling to go to bed. The gentleman lodger, however, had retired to rest. In a few minutes, as the ladies stood at the door and with their gentleman of the house watching, the lights suddenly reappeared, and the gentleman became at once, I will not say alarmed, but astonished at the unusual and unaccountable appearance of the lights between 11 and 12 o'clock at night in a church which is rarely used for night worship except on the Sabbath. In a state of feeling which naturally grows out of such an unaccountable occurrence, the gentleman crossed over the street and communicated what he had seen, what he had felt he perhaps strove to conceal, to an intelligent neighbor, who sat up rather late to enjoy the coolness of the open air, for it was very close and sultry within doors. The neighbor heard the gentleman's story with amazement, but not holding the popular faith in relation to ghosts and hobgoblins, and being moreover of the opinion that if lights had been seen in the church, the bearers of them were of the earthly, he suggested an examination of the church, and proposed to call on another neighbor, who kept the keys of the haunted building. Don't know why they didn't do that initially.
Yeah, seriously.
That neighbor was easily found in his office close by, engaged at his writing desk, which, on hearing the marvelous story, he promptly left, determined to open, enter, and examine the church for himself. Procuring the keys, stationing his two friends outside, and calling in the aid of two other persons who were casually passing through the street to watch the side windows, through which it was suspected by the third party that the earthly intruders might have entered the sanctum sanctorum for no pious purpose, and having made all the arrangements necessary to prevent escape on the outside of the church, the third party opened the doors and entered the building, provided with a lantern and a cudgel.
What's a cudgel? Cudgel.
A cudgel is like a club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, that's a weapon, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, if you're going into a potentially haunted building or into a building period at midnight,
yeah.
And your options are ghosts or robbers, I guess make sure that you're armed for every purpose, right? Okay. All the pews of the church were carefully opened and searched. The pulpit and the curtains behind the pulpit, the vestry and the closet on the floor were also closely inspected, but nobody, either celestial or terrestrial, was there. Ascending into the choral gallery, the search was pursued all around the organ and even into the bell chamber, but still no ghost was there, no robber or intruder of any kind. A solemn silence reigned, only, however, for a few moments. Gentle footsteps were heard at a distance on the floor of the church, near the pulpit, near the awful spot already described, but nothing could be seen, and the footsteps, though distinctly heard, were certainly the footsteps of no human being. Descending from the gallery to the floor of the church, the sole examiner of its interior began to feel a kind of all-overishness come upon him, which almost made him repent of his skepticism and his temerity in entering the haunted church. Taking courage, however, he opened his lantern and almost instantly discovered that he had a companion in the church, which proved to be a large Newfoundland dog.
What?
Belonging to a neighbor, which had, unperceived, followed him into the building.
That doesn't explain what turned on the lights, though.
After recovering his temporary agitation, fright, the examiner joined his friend in the street and held a consultation as to what all these things, the awful lights which had appeared from time to time in the church, can mean. All the neighborhood, it was sagaciously remarked, would certainly believe the church is haunted unless the appearance of these marvelous lights could be satisfactorily accounted for.
That's what I'm saying.
Many allusions were then made to other mysterious occurrences, all of which had a squinting towards the supernatural, and especially to that of a certain haunted mansion in the western part of the city, which everybody believed to be haunted because all the bells in the house had been found ringing for months together, and which strange event no one. God, this is a long sentence.
Man, I told you these people
Listen,
really love run-on
people in
sentences.
1839, what are we doing? We don't need to hear about the Western Market House or wherever. Anyway,
It's all about context,
yeah.
baby.
So, um, many allusions were then made to the other mysterious occurrences, all of which had a squinting towards the supernatural, and especially to that of a certain haunted mansion in the western part of the city, which everybody believed to be haunted because all the bells in the house had been found ringing for months together,
Oh,
and which strange event no one had ever yet been able to account for, although the clergymen and philosophers had tried their very best to find out. With these and other similar awful narratives, the party continued to hold discourse for some time until, if no one of them was so much frightened at what he heard that each particular hair did stand on the end like quills upon the fretful porcupine, it was indeed quite evident that the courage and skepticism of the whole party were somewhat on the wane. In the midst, however, of all this consultation and consternation, it suddenly popped into the head of one of the party that, perhaps, as there was a staircase window in his dwelling house, which was only separated from the church by a very narrow passage, the reflection of a light carried upstairs by a member of his family might appear to persons on the opposite side of the street as a light flitting about the body of the church. It was then unanimously agreed that the gentleman should go inside his house and try the experiment with a lighted candle. When, lo, it became almost instantaneously evident that the light which seemed to be flitting around the church was the reflection of the candle through the staircase window into the body of the church.
ah,
The
boo. I wanted it to be supernatural.
Thus, the whole mystery was at once unraveled, and that too in the presence and the sight of several bystanders, which are either whole or half believers in the story of the haunted church, a story which is probably as well founded as many more of the same kind, which had terrified thousands of credulous beings who might have traced their foundation to natural causes, if they had taken due pains to inquire into all the circumstances of the case in a cool and deliberate manner. The end.
Wow.
I mean, shout out to them for trying to at least kind of be scientific about it.
I
Like,
wish there were more newspaper articles like that nowadays.
nowadays, sure, but I don't know. Go back into the Library of Congress archives and you'll find a whole bunch.
I know, seriously. Oh my
uh,
gosh. I love that they took us on an entire,
the
they were from
full
the
emotional
history of the
tree.
church and of like why people think it's haunted to like the incident that, garnered publicity
Yeah.
to the
And
conclusion.
I do kind of dislike that. It's like, oh, well, all the women are saying whatever, and it's the female servants that are doing whatever. And I'm like,
I don't think it's that necessarily. I think that women have always been a type of social group where a lot of news gets,
yeah,
passed around through women.
yeah. I will perpetually maintain that rumor and gossip are not in and of themselves inherently bad.
Also, although I will say, I think there was a study that showed that men actually gossip more than women, which
Uh,
is hilarious.
yeah. So the foundation for my argument for that is that just because it's not an international or political saga doesn't mean it's not important and doesn't mean it's not news. It's still community information and still
Yeah,
community. We should still know who's been creeping on whom and
exactly.
who might be
It's all
cheating.
information
Yeah.
that's necessary.
Yeah. And who's a creep who's been cheating if it's a friend, if somebody's friend of a friend is a cheating creep, that's more likely to affect you in the next year than it is going the
Yeah,
I mean, not necessarily for us because we live in the DMV and
well, I'm not saying that neither news is that one is more important than the other, but I'm saying that one is, it's like the difference between, or it's like the reason why you vote in the presidential election, but you're also supposed to vote in your local
yeah.
elections because those are more localized and those are more,
Your local election is going to affect your day to day and week to week
yes,
much more than the national election is.
yeah.
I mean, sort of asterisk, except for us, we live in the DMV.
I would say anywhere, like, but yeah, I think
So, but I mean, sorry to illustrate why I keep saying, well, asterisk, except for us. I got married in DC during a government shutdown, and usually that means my marriage, if I got married in DC not during a shutdown, my marriage license would be issued by the DC Superior Court. However, because it's a federal building that gets federal funding, it gets shut down. So my marriage license is issued by the DC Mayor's office instead.
got it.
So that's why I keep saying asterisk, except for us, because
Isn't
that's,
Alexandria its own county though?
yeah, we got married in DC, so we went through DC.
Oh,
And so Alexandria is its own separate
that's right.
jurisdiction.
You did get married in DC.
Yeah. Alexandria is its own separate jurisdiction, but they also have a lot stricter officiant laws than DC does. And luckily, like the mayor's office was doing stuff once and had been doing stuff once it was obvious that the shutdown wasn't going to end anytime soon.
Yeah.
But
I forgot that there was a shutdown. I mean, I didn't forget, but like I was also affected, but differently because
yeah,
I work with a nature school that we use a
you,
state park,
yeah.
and I couldn't.
Virginia
Yeah.
funding is different than national funding. I think I got hit a lot more and a lot differently than you because, like, the National Park Service is run federally, which runs all the monuments. The
Yeah.
Smithsonian's had a,
I actually don't know if it's a national park or a state park, but either way, we couldn't
yeah,
go
but
to
the
it.
Smithsonian's have independent funding or like partially independent funding, but that ran out after like 10 or 12 days. Um, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, well, that's the reason that one of the reasons, also bad weather, is why we haven't gone hiking with the kids like at all this year. We have gone twice, and usually by now, this late in the school year, we would have had been gone like 8 times already.
Oh wow.
Exactly. So, but I remember it's because we couldn't use the facilities because the bathrooms were shut down, and because of laws, obviously with kids, you have to be able to have access. Well, with kids and adults, you have to be able to have access to a bathroom, and
Yeah.
yeah. So, and have access to like hot water and stuff if you need it.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, that was a tangent.
That was, in fact, a tangent.
A dog. That was a twist I was not expecting.
That was a combination of a dog and the staircase next door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The fact that he was kind of standing there like, wait a second. I think that when I, use a lantern,
Yeah.
y'all can see that.
Maybe.
So funny.
Yeah.
Imagine realizing that you are the ghost that has been plaguing the community.
Oh no.
Oh.
But thank you for joining for our super old-timey story newspapers. Also, generally sign up for the Library of Congress. It is
Yeah.
my favorite building in the city. It has an archive of basically everything published ever in the United States, which is how we have access to all of these really old-timey newspapers and stories. And how I was able to have easily a dozen tabs open just of 19th century newspapers. And if anyone was paying attention to our Instagram stories over the weekend, there was a New York Times article from like 1865, May of 1865, that basically laid out like, hey, here's some potential issues with potential reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's shockingly accurate.
shockingly accurate indeed. I will try and link that one in the show notes as well. But if you want to find us on Instagram and watch my unfolding obsession with old newspapers, follow us on Instagram at drearymidnightpod. And we're going to work on building up the website, drearymidnightpod.com. And if you have a story of your own you would like to share, we're trying to build up haunted hotels episode potentially soon.
That's going to be fun.
Looking at you, Omni Parker House folks. And send us an email, drearymidnightpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to support us with money and hear the second story option, and follow us on a patreon.com patreon.com/drearymidnightpod or /drearymidnight rather. And with all that said, check your stairways and leash your dogs. And safe travels home on this dreary midnight. Good night.
Good night.